Welcome to the Lab 1 exercise, Connect, Disconnect. The purpose of this lab is to become familiar with the lab environment for simulating MQTT transactions on your PC and using Wireshark to capture and analyze MQTT packets. We will cover the basic MQTT sequences for connecting and disconnecting from the broker. The most basic MQTT client operations are to connect and disconnect from a broker. This is depicted in the transaction diagram shown here. You will be simulating this transaction diagram using an MQTT.fx publisher client that's running on your PC that connects, then disconnects from the public Mosquito MQTT broker. Successful completion of this lab exercise results in a Wireshark capture of the packets in the simulated message sequence. And we can summarize what we will have learned after you've completed Lab 1 on this slide here. So you'll learn that MQTT.fx is a PC application that can be used to simulate MQTT transactions with a broker. You'll learn that Wireshark is a network protocol analyzer tool that's used to debug and troubleshoot IoT message sequences. You will learn that unsecured MQTT messages are sent and received through a TCP socket connection to port 1883 on the broker. You will learn that an MQTT connect packet is used to connect to a broker, and that an MQTT disconnect packet is used to disconnect from the broker. And so I'll just run through just a really quick demo of what you will set up in this lab. So one of the tools you need to install is called Wireshark, and the other tool is MQTT.fx. And really, all that Lab 1 has you do is first, so in MQTT.fx, basically you would click on this gear icon, and you create what's called a connection profile. And I've got a bunch of them set up here, but you're going to be, for this course, you're going to be creating eventually 2 connection profiles. But for Lab 1, you're going to be creating mosquito_pub_client. This is a connection profile. That's the name of it. And you're basically going to tell it what type of broker you're connecting to. And of course, we're connecting to an MQTT broker. The broker address is test.mosquito.org. The port, a really important parameter, like one of the really first important parameters that you'll need to set up in any MQTT client, is the client ID. The MQTT.fx tool has a generate button here, so we can generate a nice random number here for our client ID. And the rest of the parameters here, connection timeout, keep alive interval, you can keep those as the defaults. We're not changing any of them for the first lab. So once you've created this connection profile, you're going to use it, and you're going to be basically just connecting and then disconnecting from the broker. So, and you're going to use Wireshark to capture that. So that's the second part of the objectives for this lab, is to, how do we use this tool? It's a very, very versatile tool that captures transactions on the wire. A variety of transactions, TCP-related transactions, HTTP messages, MQTT messages. And we want to learn, how do we configure this tool to just capture MQTT and TCP messages, and to capture what we saw on the slide a few slides ago, those sequence of messages that are sent back and forth. So basically, the key here is you click the gear icon, right? So there's a gear icon. The first thing you're going to do is you have to set up your interface, right? Tell Wireshark which interface you're going to use. And right now, my laptop is connected using Ethernet, but you might have Wi-Fi or whatever interface you're using. You have to select it. And the most important thing really of this lab is to understand there's something called a capture filter. To really limit, you really only want to focus on what you're trying to troubleshoot or debug in this window here. You don't want to capture everything that's going on with all your network communications, because it's just a zoo. There's so much going on, a lot of protocols running simultaneously. So you're going to enter this capture filter called TCP space port space 1883. So this tells Wireshark to capture only MQTT related transactions on this interface. So once you've set that, you click Start. And now Wireshark here is waiting. It's just waiting to capture data. And all you're doing in this first lab, we're not really sending or receiving any data. All we're going to do is just, with our client, we're going to connect to the broker, and then we're going to disconnect. And that's really it. We're just going to connect and disconnect, and then we stop the capture, and then we can look at the packets, right? We can actually see the sequence of events that we talked about in the presentation a few minutes ago. We see here this three-way handshake that is used to open up a TCP socket. So protocols such as MQTT and HTTP, they run on top of a TCP socket. So you have to open a TCP socket first. And then here we have the MQTT connect command. And if you select that packet, you can actually go down into the packet details window. All of the details of that packet are shown here. Here's our client identifier, right, that was set up for us in MQTT.fx. Various connect flags, we're telling it what version of MQTT we expect to talk to. And we'll cover more details about what we find, right? There's a variety of MQTT packets. We're just covering two of them today, the connect and the disconnect. So basically any packet, any transaction you select here, you can actually examine it in the packet details window here. It's actually broken down for you. All the portions of the packet are broken down for you, and even down to the binary payload on the bottom screen. So this is a wonderful tool to troubleshoot transactions. But I guess just from a really high level, the objective in this lab is to show you basically the socket is created. When we press the connect, right? When a client connects to a broker, there's two messages, one called the connect, which is going from your computer to the broker. And then there's a connect acknowledge coming back from the broker back to your client. And then when you send a disconnect message, it's just a one-way message. And then we have this TCP teardown sequence here, right? The four-way handshake that closes the socket. Welcome to the Lab 1 exercise.